Hi, this is Franz Cantor, cartoonist, caricaturist and toon talker, and I'm here with
Jim Bridges, and I'm the president of the Australian Cartoon Museum. And today we thought we'd talk about caricature. Just a bit of an introduction with some of the best caricaturists working in Australia.
Yep.
And it'll be a bit of a history lesson as well, because we'll have to explain who these people are, because most of these people were in the last 20 years.
Yep.
So we start off with Gough Whitlam, who is now deceased, but he was a pretty controversial Prime Minister. He brought in a lot of things. His party, the Labor Party, were out of office for a long, long time, and when he came back, when they actually got in, they did too much too soon, and they ended up getting kicked out in controversial. Now,
was this after his sacking? This caricature?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he was sort of lionised.
So it's pretty miserable and...
Yeah, and it's a picture that you don't normally see of him, because that's why I liked it, because he was always shown as the Roman emperor, arrogant, and all that sort of stuff. And here, Spooner's actually done something completely different with him.
So it kind of looks lost.
Yeah, and the guy was so
puppy doggish.
Yeah, and I just love it. And it's still a caricature, but it's not an extreme caricature. But anyway, we'll start off with this picture, and we'll keep going. We'll start off, and the next picture, which is by Bill Leake, this is the classic. This is the way people will remember the man, with the Roman emperor expression, you know, and you can see the arrogant, and he looks far into the future, and he's really concerned about where he's going to be in history, his sense of history. And there we have Malcolm Fraser. He's the man who kicked him out or took his job. And the one on the right is by Neil Moore, and he had trouble within his cabinet, and he had leaks, and so he's just got him there naked. Which is,
are they bullet shells?
Yeah, that's right.
He's taking pot shots at him.
Yeah, and also the other picture by Peter Nicholson, who's not noted as a caricaturist, but here he's done a pretty interesting picture, because he's got his eyes right, the sort of narrow, sneaky eyes.
It's also his body language.
Yeah, the arrogance of him. Arrogance of him.
He had that sort of cocked head look.
Yes, but see how the eyes are...
Yeah.
He's moved that left eye, which is actually emphasised
I remember
that sneaky.
A caricature of him as the Easter Island head.
Yes, and he always had his eyes shut.
Yeah.
He always had his eyes shut, and he was arrogant, and it was bald chin. Next picture. Joe Bioka Peterson, drawn by the same person,
Albert Ricardo,
over a period of time, and Albert Ricardo on the right has changed. See, the nose is much bigger. And he's made him into a wild man, getting paranoid, because he sort of was like that in office. He was a peanut farmer, and they always called him the peanut farmer, and he was...
almost, his head was in the shape of a peanut, almost.
Well, yeah, as you'll see, and the next picture, someone's drawn him as a pineapple, and that represents... Queensland. That's where the pineapples come from, and it's not much of a portrait, but it gets the idea across. And then you have Peter Nicholson, who's actually drawn him as Frankenstein, and his stitching's coming out, and he's losing his bolts, and it's really all coming undone.
You really you've zeroed in on one element, which is probably the nose.
Yes, well, not only that, but a lot of cartoonists drew him with what's that thing that hangs over the beak of a
turkey?
A turkey, yeah, that that red thing that hangs down. A lot of people drew him with a nose like that.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of cartoonists drew him with a nose like that. But this early stages, they try and figure out how to get him down, and
you try to find something that is distinctive about them, so that it can't be even if you don't get the exact the likeness in the caricature, at least you've got something there that people can instantly recognise.
And after a while, to do the political cartoons, they get the face and the images down to very shorthand, like
Bill Leake.
Well, no, well, I'll show you later on. Anyway, here's Bob Hawke on the left when he was a union guy.
Yeah.
And look at his mean mouth and his eyes.
Yeah.
And then next he's the Prime Minister of Australia, and Ulf Kaiser's done him as the international statesman.
Yeah.
But he's sort of softened his mouth a bit. He's not as mean as he was, and he's gone berserk with the eyebrows and turned him into the hawk eyebrows. You know, and of course both artists had a ball drawing his hair. And here is more simplification. I'm going to be Prime Minister, and the fist. And I actually like that picture by Lecanto. And
it's
then,
instantly recognisable.
Yeah, and
whereas the Jeff Hawke isn't. It looks, you have to sort of see it in context.
Yes.
With the people in his hair.
Well, you've got
got Johannes Bjelke Petersen on the right, and then you've got what's that? Sydney, no, it's the High Court judge.
Yeah, High Court judge. I forget his name. And then you the other guy next to him with the glass and chubby cheeks. He was an ACT previous bloke.
And then the other guy would be the
Hayden. He's the bloke who he
replaced.
He replaced as the leader of the Labor Party. But showing that these guys are in their hair.
Well, within a style, he's got a style. It's very very stylish of their style.
Yes.
And you capture the.
And as you notice, all the drawings of Hawke, they're just playing with his hair a lot. They just love.
Well, there's a lot of hair.
Yeah. Yeah. And here he is drawn, turned into a sculpture in the Hawke-like. They've pushed the Hawke-like aspect. That's by Peter Nicholson. And, he ended up doing those prime ministers in the Ballarat park, the wall of, you walk through all the prime ministers.
And also the show on Channel 7.
Oh, yeah, that was...
Current Affairs.
Yeah, the puppets, the rubber puppets...
Rubbery figures?
Rubbery figures, that's right, yeah. So he's called Bob Hawke. He looked a bit like Bob Hawke. He looked a bit hawkish. And so they push all that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, And here you have a drawing of John Howard. John Howard was always drawn shorter than Bob Hawke, but they were the exact same size.
Yeah.
And so they emphasised his eyebrows, as you can see in both pictures.
Yeah.
And here he's just they've made him on the left. The drawing by David Hensley's made him a little guy.
Yeah.
And they've done that by just putting his tie into his pants. And the other picture is complete. He's turned him into a complete moron.
Yeah.
Which is dots for eyes, but also the eyebrows are growing out of the glasses, and we keep going, and then Zanetti's just got a few things growing. He hasn't even got a head above his eyes. He's just got a bit of hair, eyebrows growing out of the here, and he's turned him into another moron as well. And then you have Michael Mucci, who actually drew him just the glasses with the eyebrows on top with a bucket over his head. But
so it's reduction.
Yeah.
It's finding something that's distinctive about the character, and then just using that as an experiment, just reducing.
Yeah, well, most cartooning is shorthand, and the more you do it, the more they get brought down to the basics. Now, here's a very unusual drawing. It's by Jock Alexander.
Yeah.
And he's illustrating an article about the relationship between John Howard and Rupert Murdoch in the lead up to an election.
Yeah.
So, because Rupert Murdoch owns Foxtel, or Fox, he's got the body of Bart Simpson, but the head of Homer. But the eyebrows growing out of the glasses represents John Howard, but it's basically really also, if you look at the eyes, it's Rupert Murdoch. So it's a triple portrait, and of course Pauline Pansdown, who is the right winger, is put on the paper, and just to show that he's a balanced person, he's got a Rembrandt t-shirt on.
Yeah.
So it's a triple portrait, and it just shows you what you can do in a caricature. You can put three people into one.
Yeah, just for play.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
And this is Jeff Kennett when he was a young bloke just getting into Parliament, and then when he'd become very experienced. And the John Spooner picture on the right, he obviously didn't like him. John Swinner didn't like him, and he sort of brought out the sort of corruption and the sneakiness of the character. And they also
How would
played
you do
around.
that, though?
They also
You would
played
do that
around
in
with the
expression.
hair.
So
Sorry?
you do that with the expression, or certain eccentricities, like a sneer or something, or
Well, I mean, he's got-
hard expression of the eyes you'd accentuate.
Well, in the picture by Colette on the left, his eyes are starting to become like that. But later on,
They're very close, actually, because
Yes.
you'd almost think that they were referenced from the same photograph.
Well, they're about 10 years
Certainly
apart.
from the same
They're about
angle.
10 years, at least 10 years apart,
Oh.
and it just shows you how different people. Like on the right, he's drawn him with the presidential, almost Reagan hairstyle.
Yeah.
Because of the
The
power.
bouffant.
Yeah, the bouffant. And then actually that went into architecture, because all the things that his government built
Yeah.
had that beginning on the. They call it the Jeff Key.
The legacy.
Yeah,
They're trying to
and
leave a legacy.
And over here you've got How to Compete with New South Wales, and his hair's been turned into the Sydney Opera House because they're trying to beat him on the arts thing. So Jeff Kennett was always trying to get exclusive shows for Victoria before they ever went to Sydney.
Yeah.
And here you have Bill Leake, who's drawn him in profile, which is the Roman emperor look, and it sort of captures his arrogance very, very well.
Yeah. They make a good coin.
Yeah. And then here you have the richest man in Australia at the time, Kerry Packer.
Yeah.
How do you draw him without getting into trouble? Because he's a pretty powerful, influential man. And he's hardly got any eyes. He was called... what was his nickname?
The Galah.
No.
Corruption Inquiry.
No, it was called... what's that large... goanna.
Oh, goanna. That's it. Not
the large
Galah, goanna.
Yeah, and sort of he had very unusual skin, and so they always had pockmarks and stuff on his face. But here you have Lecanto draws him in a double portrait where his clothes, on one side there's the rich businessman gambler, on the other side is the guy who brought in the
Night cricket.
the night cricket and and made it sexy. And of course all the money, he's radiating money. And there you have Mark Knight, an early Mark Knight, who's actually got stuck into him and really turned him into a lot of... Mark Knight doesn't do extreme stuff like this, but look at the thick lip and the nose coming over the lip and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, everybody tries to outdo everybody else, so Paul Dallimore really gets stuck into him, and it gives him permanent elephantitis of the lip.
Yeah.
And then someone else goes further, Joe O'Brien, who actually has just come back to cartooning. He became a tattooist for 20 years, and he was a great rock and roll extreme caricaturist. And that's
It's almost like a caricature as a landscape.
Yes, that's right. And see those big things at the back? They represent towers.
Towers
Like
of money,
piles of money, gambling, or even smokestacks. Yeah, and here we have John Elliott, who actually was a businessman, and these are examples of how you do extreme noses. Like in your drawing on the left, his nose completely covers his mouth, which is, but it's sort of, he had a big nose, and so that's what you go for. And then on the other one, he's turned him into a pig snout, but it's also very... It's sort of a phallic nose as well, a flaccid phallic nose.
When you try to caricature somebody and turn them into something else, like an animal, so you're referencing some other animal. Here you're referencing a pig.
So when
it's a very dicey situation.
Yes.
I mean, I had to actually, if you look at it, if you imagine on my caricature, the nose isn't there. The distance between the mouth and the eyes have been exaggerated to accommodate the new proportions of the nose.
But when you did that drawing, were you trying to get, were you following a story? Because he's walking, he's like the commander of Melbourne.
That's exactly it. That's my brief. That's how I picked it up.
But you really went berserk on that nose. That's one of the biggest noses I've ever seen on him. So,
well, when you caricature when you look at somebody and you think, well, I'd like to do a caricature of that person, it becomes a challenge. to center on that one element that is the strongest element that you feel is in the caricature, and then, without destroying the likeness of the person that you're doing the caricature of.
Well,
that's a challenge.
The other drawing is that, for many, many hundreds of years, famous, powerful men have been drawn as animals.
As animals, yeah.
Yeah, and here's an animal. That's a partial drawing. You'll see the rest of it in another film. He's smoking cigarettes. He was famous for smoking cigarettes. Now, I think that's the finest picture of Don Bradman I've ever seen, by Cunahan. And, of course, you don't even see his eyes, but you sort of...
So that was in the 40s?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And then Weg was really impressed with
60s.
it. And Weg did that. I think he did it in the 50s, actually. 50s. But he's actually been influenced very much by that picture, and he's tried to do his version. Yeah. And they're both very nice. As a matter of fact, we made a...
Well, the beauty of Weg's style is that it can be viewed from across the street and recognised.
Yes.
So when he does cartoons and caricatures, they're very strong.
Yes.
So you can imagine them
sharp, thick lines.
Very thick lines.
Yeah.
So they're very, very cool.
And here's
there's two leaks
of Alan Bond.
Yeah.
Early on, when he was
when he was the hero, and then when he's the villain.
That's right. And you see, if you look close at his eyes, they're sort of in swirls.
Yeah.
And that represents he's sort of going mad, because that was during the court case
madness,
where he says that, I can't remember doing this and I can't remember doing that. But it's interesting when you get two works by the same person over a period of time. And
what has he learned? What has he learned from this face?
Yeah.
Well, this is what he's learned from the face. So if you believe in the pen of Bill Leak, then you will find that he is extremely honest with what he sees here. This isn't... I don't think this is Bill Leak making any kind of aspersions or any sort of unkind references to the character. I think he's found something in the face that has told the story.
So
the Dorian Gray has become the
this is what life does to you.
The painting.
He fell from grace. He was in jail.
Yeah.
And he was under a lot of pressure in the court cases and lost a lot of money, a lot of other people's money, I should say. Next picture is another one of Alan Bond by the same artist.
It was a fat cat.
Hensley. And of course, that's when he was very popular on the left, and when he was doing his business deals. And then later on, he's been scarred. He's been scarred by the
market.
The market, but he's still a fat cat. And I like the way he's actually made the face to the left and the right, the big part of the caricature, and left the nose sort of intact. And I like the vertical push on it,
So the story in the caricature, usually when I do a caricature, I'll put a caricature in the story. But oftentimes, when you see something like David's caricature on the left, the face itself is the story. So it's like, remember the caricature of Packer, where it's almost like a landscape.
Yes.
The face occupies the majority
it shows
of
the
picture.
power of the man. Now, this was about ears.
It's turning the caricature into a story rather than occupying a story or telling a story with other things around the face.
Yeah. This is pictures of Billy McMahon, who was the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And they used to call him Wingnuts because he had such big ears.
Big ears, yeah.
And of course, when Albert Ricardo did that drawing on the left, I thought, my God, no one can actually do better than that. That was just like the hair is just nestling beautifully on the ears.
Yeah.
And he's really got that because he was regarded as one of our worst prime ministers, a very ineffective prime minister. And of course, Bill Leak has given him huge ears, but he's softened it. He hasn't ridiculed him as much as you'd expect. And of course, he's had a bald draw in their hair too, and it's got a like he actually. It's got a. Bill Leak goes after people. He doesn't take prisoners with a lot of his work, and here he's actually I don't know. He's softened.
He hasn't gone you reduce it down to elements that you can manipulate.
It's a beautiful portrait, I think. It's a beautiful
It is.
portrait.
It's sensitive.
Yeah.
You can see with the soft creases around the mouth and the lower lip.
Yeah.
You know, compare the lines of the lower lip on Ricardo's.
Well, he's trying
still looks very elegant there.
Yeah.
But with Bill's, it's very... It's lost its elegance and
but it's mellowed out a bit. You know?
It's become very warm.
Yeah, and I love how he's got the eyebrows, the lines of the eyebrows, the curve of it that goes into the crow's feet at the same time. It's a continuous line almost of that pattern. The next two, that's Robin Archer and Ida Buttrose.
Yeah. So instantly recognisable again. Spooner's just captured something. He's sort of minimalised it into some very simple brushstrokes.
A lot of artists give women big eyes, and it cutes them up. You know,
makes them look cute.
Yeah, like I suspect. Yeah, like a big cat's eyes, big child's eyes. You know. Not so much like anime, but that's extreme. But he's got it down. I mean, she doesn't look like that anymore. That's nearly 30 years old, that portrait. And then you have Ida Buttrose, who's still on television, and she's looking straight at you with those eyes of hers, and it sort of shows her intelligence. He's sort of caught her. Well,
isn't that the sort of like the intelligent-looking hand position?
Yes. Actually, Michelangelo
pointing to my brain.
That's right. Michelangelo did it in his stuff to show that it was cerebral. Yeah. And here
Tell me about this. This is interesting.
This is just to show you how we've gone a bit too far. I just wanted to move the eyes slightly.
How you can move elements in the face.
Yes.
That's a caricature done by Spooner.
Yeah.
The Paul Harvey, another caricaturist, has manipulated it digitally.
Yeah.
So the object is what? To
just to show
them before
that's
it breaks.
Right, that's exactly right, because that's the toughness, that's the subtlety, that's the hard part of caricature. How far can you push it? Because if you push it too far, you'll miss it.
You lose the likeness.
And here he's extremely pushed it.
Yeah.
And it just looks like no one on earth.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost looks a bit like alien. I don't think anybody's ever seen someone like that in their life, you know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when you compare both pictures side by side, because the eyes still work on both portraits.
All the elements are the same.
Yeah.
They're just arranged differently on the face.
Yeah.
And that coexistence, or that relationship between the elements on the face, is crucial to a likeness.
And sometimes when you
move them, you lose the likeness.
Yeah, but sometimes when you're working on a caricature, obviously you can learn. If it's not right, you just got to sort of look at it and say, maybe the eyes are the problem, or maybe the mouth is just too close to the nose, or whatever it is. So it's just a way of sort of working out things. Now this is source material. Now that photo, when you saw the caricature of Bob Hawke, I'm going to be Prime Minister before, it looked very much like a caricature. But then when you see the actual photo it's taken from, you just think, well, God, he's a walking caricature.
Yeah.
You know? And it's also important the sort of picture you do pick, because if you get the best pictures, you can get a better picture. But if you get a too extreme picture, by the time you start the caricature, you've lost it.
Because they're not of a usual expression.
Yeah, and that's obviously the picture it was used from. Now here, Peter Costello, he's screwing his face up, and that's not a. That picture is not a. It's not a.
It's not a normal, typical view of.
No.
So he's actually had to put in Costello-like elements, like the big Frankenstein head and the big bulbous nose.
Yeah, and the collar and the chin. He's pushed it, and I think he's lost it. I personally, I don't know. I think Joe O'Brien's just pushed it too far, because
I think you'd recognise it in context of the day.
Yes, but it's just that.
But you wouldn't recognise it after it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So it's important that you get the best quality pictures.
Yeah.
And then here's Penny Chapman, the film producer, and you can see that's obviously the picture that Bill Leakes used as the source material. And it's just interesting to look at for, just to compare him and what he's done. And he's done a great job, I think.
You make you make assumptions when you look at photographs. Often a caricaturist will look at a few different photographs to see where the photographs lied. If there's like the bottom lip sticking out too much, if that's a part of her natural expression or range of expressions, then that's a valid thing to look at. But occasionally you'll get something. This looks to me like he kind of lost the likeness, try to find the likeness and what's the most expressive part about her, what tells everybody that's Penny Chapman.
Well, I think it's
probably her hair.
Yeah, but also her intelligent eyes.
Yeah,
and he's done the feminine, the cute thing by making her pupils bigger. He does that all the time with women. He draws them with large pupils, and it does feminise them. It does. It makes them attractive. Yes, and then we move on to Gough Whitlam again. Here he is, and it's a very mysterious art form. And this goes in closer to his face.
Okay, so he's been doodling into this painting.
But
with the
basically,
watercolour.
this is the area you've got to get right in a caricature. Even if you move the eyes
Isn't
apart.
that called something? It's the T-zone.
The T-zone, yeah.
If you're in skincare, it's the T-zone. So the eyes and the nose and the mouth, that area where the oil is.
Yeah, the ratio has to be right. And you can push them, but the ratio has to be right. And then we go a bit closer. And then there's those eyes. He's done a great job on the eyes. And I think... I've done this because I like the mysterious aspect of caricature. I think it's a deeply mysterious art form. At its highest level, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I think it actually beats portraiture because it tells you more about the person than a portrait does. The actual portrait tries to tell you about who the essence of the person is, but because you have all these different things you can use in caricature, you can actually get closer to the essence of the person.
Well, caricature is more than just what you see. A caricature is more the artist interpreting what he sees and then making judgments and telling a story.
Yes.
So if you tell a story, you're telling a story with essentially with someone's face.
Yes.
So it's not your face, it's someone else's face. Yeah. But the recognition is an important entree into the story. So once you recognise it, Gough Whitlam, then you think, okay, so what's the story of this face? So when people when people see portraits, realistic portraits of people, they don't immediately think of a story. What's the story of the face? No. But with a caricature, it's the opposite. They think first, what's the story of this face? What's this face telling me?
And that's why that picture.
This is what
that's
they say.
Exactly why that picture fascinates me. Yeah. Because this is not the public face of Gough Whitlam at all.
It's telling you a new story.
That's right. That's what fascinates me. Yeah. And I never met the man, so.
Well, that's the beauty of caricature. Yeah. It tells you new stories.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, this is.
Jim Bridges.
And what's your name again? Franz Cantor.
Franz Cantor.
Saying, see you next time.
Adios.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.